Ice on the beard, wind that cuts like glass, temperatures that would make most modern heaters cry for backup. And yet, inside a Viking home, people slept warm, dry, and very much alive. No electricity, no central heating, just raw intelligence, smart design, and a deep understanding of survival that even armies in World War II had to relearn the hard way. Today, we break down how Viking homes stayed warm in brutal northern winters, and why their building tricks still matter for cold weather survival, military shelters, and off-grid living right now. Built low to beat the wind. Viking homes did not rise tall and proud. They hugged the earth, long, low shapes with gently curved walls and thick roofs. That was not style, that was strategy. Cold wind steals heat faster than almost anything. The taller the structure, the more surface area wind can attack. Vikings reduced exposure by keeping their homes close to the ground. Wind flowed over instead of slamming directly into flat walls. In World War II, soldiers fighting in Arctic regions learned a similar lesson. Tall tents and poorly shielded huts lost heat fast and became iceboxes. Lower profiles and windbreaks made a serious difference. Vikings already had that figured out 1,000 years earlier. Walls that worked like winter armour. Those walls were not thin planks. They were thick, layered and heavy. Timber frames packed with turf, earth, moss and other natural insulation. Think of it like wearing multiple layers of clothing instead of one thin jacket. Earth is a powerful insulator. It slows the movement of heat. Once a Viking home warmed up, those thick walls helped keep that heat trapped inside. At the same time, they blocked icy air from sneaking through cracks. Back in World War II, troops stationed in those freezing zones would stuff sandbags, snow and earth around their shelters for the exact same reason. You see, soil and packed material really helped reduce heat loss. But honestly, the Vikings had already turned that principle into full-time architecture long before. Imagine roofs that were basically living blankets. The Viking roof, you know, it was a true masterpiece of survival engineering. They used wooden beams, covered with layers of bark, and then topped it all with thick turf. Yes, actual grass and soil, right there on the roof. That turf roof acted just like a giant insulated blanket. It trapped heat rising from inside, while also blocking the cold from above. And in winter, snow would often pile up on top, which made the insulation even better. Snow is packed full of trapped air, and, well, trapped air is absolute gold when you're trying to stay warm. During World War II, snow shelters like quinzees and igloo-style builds used the very same science. Snow and earth, they trap air, and that trapped air really slows down heat loss. In a way, Vikings were basically living under a natural, permanent cold-weather bunker. At the centre of the home burned a long, open hearth fire. This was not just for cooking, you know. It was the heart of the heating system. Heat rose and spread under the high centre of the roof, then slowly radiated outward. The thick walls and turf roof absorbed warmth during the day and released it gradually. The house acted like a heat battery. Smoke did not just escape instantly. It filtered through roof vents and small openings, which slowed heat loss. Not the cleanest air by modern standards, but honestly incredibly efficient for warmth. In World War II, poorly ventilated shelters often stayed warmer than well-vented ones, though at a cost. Troops had to balance warmth with breathable air, just like Viking families did. Survival is always a trade-off. This part surprises people, honestly. In many Viking homes, animals were kept very close, sometimes even under the same roof. Cattle, sheep and goats produce a lot of body heat, you know. That warmth did not go to waste. Shared structures meant animal heat helped raise indoor temperatures. It also reduced the animal's own risk of freezing. During World War II, soldiers sometimes sheltered with pack animals or built barns into defensive positions in cold regions for similar thermal reasons. Body heat is energy. Vikings treated it like part of the heating system. Doorways were low and narrow. You had to bend to enter. That was not about manners. It was about physics. Large openings leak heat fast. Every time a big door opens, warm air rushes out and cold air floods in. Smaller doors limited that exchange. Many homes also had entry passages that acted like airlocks, slowing cold drafts. So, modern cold-weather military structures actually use the same idea. Double-door entries and narrow access points help reduce heat loss. Once again, Viking design shows up centuries before modern field manuals ever mention it. Sleeping platforms, you know, they really trapped warmth. People did not sleep on the cold ground. Raised wooden platforms lined the sides of the home. Furs, wool and bedding added a lot of insulation. Heat rises, of course. By sleeping just a bit elevated, Vikings managed to stay in those warmer air layers. The platforms were also close to the central hearth zone, where temperatures stayed more stable. In World War II, soldiers were taught to insulate themselves from frozen ground using branches gear or raised cots. Ground contact, it just drains heat so fast. Viking households were already built around that principle, long before modern armies figured it out. You know, this is not just cool history. It is a survival blueprint. Low-profile structures, thick insulated walls, earth and turf roofing, centralized heat, controlled ventilation, smart use of body heat. These ideas, they show up again and again in extreme cold survival guides and military winter warfare training. The Vikings were not just raiders. They were elite cold climate engineers. Their homes were not primitive huts. Instead, they were carefully designed thermal systems built with the materials available. When modern armies in World War II struggled in Arctic campaigns, many of their emergency solutions echoed what northern people had done for centuries. Sometimes progress is not about inventing something new. It is about remembering what already worked. And that is the real lesson here. Technology can fail, fuel can run out, power grids can collapse. But smart design, local materials, and an understanding of heat, wind and insulation can keep humans alive in places that look unlivable. That is Viking knowledge, hard-earned and battle-tested by nature itself. If you want more breakdowns like this, where ancient survival meets military reality, make sure you subscribe to 0 Hour World War II, hit that like button, and share this with someone who thinks history is boring. Trust me, history is full of survival secrets hiding in plain sight.